Hello everybody, today I'm going to do an abstract and I'm going to start with circles. I found some lids of a yogurt container and an orange juice container and a paper plate. There are round things all over the place to use as templates, and I had my pencil and I got out my paint box. You could use tempera paint or a watercolor box for this. You could use acrylic paints as well if you wanted to. So first of all, I'm making a design with circles by tracing some circles on my canvas. This is a canvas. It's a board canvas. It's a small one. You might have a canvas that is on a frame, which would be a little bit different, but almost the same. So that's the surface that I'm using, a canvas surface. So then I got my paints. I picked 4 cool colors. You could use 2 or 3 or 4 cool colors, blues and purples for a start. That is a cool red. It's sort of cool red. It's a bluish red. So that's a cool red too. So you get a kind of watercolor effect on a canvas when you use these paints because they're not that solid like acrylic paint would be. But they stain the canvas, and that is what we're aiming for here. We are making a base for an abstract painting and collage that we're going to make. So these are cool colors. You could pick warm colors or cool colors. I think it's good to start with cool or warm colors. So we're going to do part of it with cool colors, and then we're going to save some spaces and paint them with warm colors. So I have speeded this up so I don't work this fast. So take your time when you do this, but I thought if you watch this first, then you'll remember what to do. So I was leaving some white space, but later I decided not to leave white space. I just went right up to the edges with my paint. But you could leave white spaces if you want to. Then I picked my warm colors. I picked some orange and some yellow and some red, some orangey red, a warm red. And I started to paint warm colors on my canvas. This might take a whole session, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes to do this part. And then the next day we'll start the next part when it's all dry. But for now, this is the beginning of our abstract canvas. I like the way the camera speeds up everything when I go into iMovie and double my speed, and then I doubled it again, so I doubled the speed twice on this video. It's almost done for this part. So here we go. We're almost at the end of this part. I hope you enjoyed this. So this is an experimental part of this project. Of course, the whole thing is an experiment. I didn't really know what was going to happen next, but I was going to try adding some texture. So I had some bubble wrap in the closet. So I cut a piece and I painted with my paintbox paints over the bubble wrap, thinking that I might get an interesting texture if I push it down on the paper after it's painted. But it didn't really work out the way I expected. It just looked kind of messy. See? It didn't really work that well. And I added it over here too. But I wasn't that happy with the bubble wrap. It didn't really work that well. So then I thought I'd try the end of a paintbrush that has a kind of round edge on it. So I thought, oh, let's try, see what happens. So I took this paintbrush, I dipped it in the paint But that didn't work either very well. But it was okay. I didn't stop trying. It really didn't work that well. I realize, I admit, it didn't work. Okay, but I kept on going. I wasn't going to give up. I was going to keep on trying, see what happened. So I tried that again, didn't work. And that made a mess, and I had to wipe it up because it looked like dirty water. But when you don't really know what's going to happen when you're doing a painting, an abstract painting, and this was an experiment. And you can see that I had used a sponge. I found a sponge. You can see that I painted some of the sponge, and then I put the color down, and it worked okay. And then I tried some acrylic paint because I thought it might be a little bit stronger than the paintbox paint. So, and it was. And I got some white acrylic paint and mixed it with some blue to get a nice blue. And I dabbed it around, and it looked okay. I liked what was happening. It was fun. So I was experimenting. Yeah. And then I got that paintbrush again and tried the dots. And this time it worked because the acrylic paint worked better with the end of that paintbrush. So you might have some things you could use to put texture onto your painting. You can use even toilet paper rolls. The end of it makes a nice circle, for instance. You might use an eraser and dab color on, or maybe a potato. Cut a heart shape into a potato and print hearts all over it. But this is what I had to work with. I didn't have too much in the kitchen to work with, so I made some dots with that paint, and it worked okay. So it was looking okay. And then, I have to tell you, I let it dry. Before I started adding this Sharpie, it was dry. All the paint was dry, except there was some wet white paint under my arm, and it got on my arm in this. I think I cleaned it up as I was working on this. I got paint all over my arm. So you have to be careful that you don't make a mess, and be sure you have something under your canvas, like a big piece of paper like I have here, to protect you from getting the table covered in paint, especially if you're using acrylic paint. Anyway, the marker was great for adding pattern, and if you go around your shapes with the marker, you get some interesting effects. Those dots, I went around them and I made some more circles just out of nowhere, and then I put a row of circles around the edge of that blue circle, and I thought that looked kind of nice. It looked like a kind of a chain. So when you're making your art, it won't be like my art, it'll be your art. And you can make circles, you can make squares, you can do whatever you feel like is in your heart, to follow your heart and see what you want to do next. So I liked the effect of circles. I like how it leaves a pink circle in the middle of that pinkish circle. And if I put the black on it, it gives it a different kind of feeling, a different intensity. And then I put some little thingies on those little circles. They look like little creatures flying around, or little bugs or something. It was looking a little bit like outer space, I think. Planets floating in the universe in a field of color. Oh, see, that's where I had the paint all over my hand, so I had to clean my arm off. So I wasn't too careful, and I got paint on my tablecloth there. But my tablecloth is meant for art, so it didn't matter that I made a mess. I have the tablecloth to protect. It's just a plastic tablecloth that I got at the dollar store, but it protects me and my table from making too much of a mess with my art supplies. So there, I made more circles around some of the colors. You can make boxes, you can make squares, you can make any kind of shapes, you can make patterns. And this is only part 2 and 3 because we're going to add some 3-dimensional shapes next, and I'll show you how to do that in the next videos. We're going to do some watercolor painting. I hope you like this part. So we're pretty well done for this part.